All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are here, and I believe we are live. We're recording. I think everything is running like it should be. I want to make sure everybody is logging in okay as well. And it looks like this is great. Yeah, we've got a number of people already logging in. Hello, my name is Nathan Holritz, and I am your host today for this webinar, Getting Started with Photographer's Edit. Really, probably better titled, How to Get the Best Possible Results with Photographer's Edit. That's what we're here for today, because some of you may have already started using our services, and others of you maybe are either interested in signing up and using our service, or you're just getting started. My goal today is to help you have the best possible experience with Photographer's Edit. I started the company about 12 and a half years ago, and have had extensive experience not only as a photographer, but as an editor and running this company. And I want to, based on that experience, give you some suggestions as to how you might be able to best use our service so you've got a great experience, and ultimately you can have your life back. That is really the biggest benefit of using Photographer's Edit, is you get time back. You give up a little bit of control. We take care of your editing for you, and you get your life back. You get time back in your life to spend with the important people in your life, to do the things that will actually grow your business. Editing is not going to help you grow your company. And so we'll handle that for you. You focus on growing your company. You focus that time on spending with the important people in your life, and you'll be set. So that being said, I'm going to give everyone just about another 30, 45 seconds or so to log in. And then we're going to jump right into this webinar today, which will last about an hour. And I hope that you find this helpful. This is meant to be a conversation, very much a conversation, as in two-way, not just me talking. I don't want to ramble on and bore you all. So if you have questions or comments, don't hesitate to use that little chat box there on your Zoom software. Type any questions or comments into that chat box. And from time to time, I will check that chat box and respond to those comments or to those questions as we go along. All right. So I'm going to give everybody about another 15 seconds or so to log in here, and we will jump into this. I'm assuming everybody knows this already, but of course our website is photographersedit.com, and you can follow us on Instagram at photogsedit, PHOTOGSEDIT. And yeah, Haley, who produces the Bokeh podcast. By the way, if you don't listen to a good photography podcast, I host a podcast now that has, well, we've over 450 interviews, tons of content at Bokeh, B-O-K-E-H podcast.com. You can check that out. Haley produces that show. She also heads up our digital marketing, and she is in that chat window already. Don't hesitate to say hello there as well to Haley and to myself. And again, if you have questions or comments along the way, type in those comments and those questions, and I will be glad to jump in from time to time, look at that chat window, and answer those questions and comments for you. Cameron says, hello from Denver. Cameron, I'm a little bit jealous. I love Denver, just Colorado in general. But hello, thanks for hanging out today. Jennifer says, hi, Nathan. Just wanted to say that I used your services for the first time last week. Was really pleased with the work you guys did for me. Also good to hear, Jennifer. I'm really encouraged by that. Needless to say, COVID has taken a pretty big toll on us as a company, and we've had to make some adjustments to our workflow as well, but we're doing our best to make sure that we're still producing a great finished product for you. And if at any point along the way, using our service, you have feedback for us, positive or negative, I'm going to actually show you how to give us that feedback. Email is fine, but we've actually designed a really great way, a much more efficient way to give us feedback, and I'll show you that here in just a little bit. All right, so I'm going to jump out of the chat window here, and what we'll do, I'm actually going to go ahead and share my browser window and pull this up here really quick. And actually, you know what, before I do that, let me just do this, because I don't want you to have to stare at a browser window while I'm talking. And by the way, Leslie says hello. Hi, Leslie. Thanks for saying hey. And again, I want to stress, anybody as you're logging in, let's make this a two-way thing, a conversation, a back and forth. If you have questions, comments, don't hesitate to pop them in that chat window. Definitely glad to respond to them as we go along. Now, as we jump into this, I want to stress a really important word, and then I'm going to jump to the website and show you, kind of walk you through the services and the tool that is the tools that are centered around this word, and that word is communication. I can't stress enough the importance of communication for the best possible experience with Photographer's Edit. And the thing that I liken this too is my experience in the retail world. So years and years ago, around my college days, I worked in a variety of retail stores. I worked in Lens Crafters. I actually ended up getting my optician certification with Lens Crafters, but I worked in Lens Crafters, Dillard's, Tommy Hilfiger, J. Riggins, maybe one or two others. Nonetheless, when I went and worked for those companies, they communicated quite extensively through a training program to help me get set up to work for them. They didn't just push me out on the sales floor and say, okay, go work. They put me through a training program. There was ongoing communication with me, feedback given to me as necessary for the sake of that working relationship, right? The last thing that they would do is to hire me and then expect me to just go do a job without extensive communication and feedback as necessary. The exact same principle applies to the relationship that we want to have with you at Photographer's Edit. When you invest in a relationship with us, and it is an investment because it takes time to get your preferences set up, make sure the editing team is doing exactly what it is that you want. When you invest in that relationship with us, the key to a great relationship with Photographer's Edit is communication. I can't stress that enough. And we've been around now for about 12 and a half years. And the number of times that I've heard from photographers that they're apprehensive giving us negative feedback, for example, if they get an order back and maybe the contrast is a little bit off or something, they feel bad giving us negative feedback, so they just avoid it. They go back, they fix the thing themselves, and then they either move on from us, or maybe they place another order, but the experience isn't positive all the way around. When the reality is we want that kind of communication and that feedback. If they have changed their editing style, their editing preferences at some point along the way, they're using a different preset, or maybe they like a little bit more contrast or a little bit less saturation, those preferences change. We want them to tell us that as well. Communication is absolutely probably the most vital thing, actually, to have a great experience with Photographer's Edit. And so everything that I'm going to share today centers around that super, super important principle of communication. Cannot stress it enough. We want a relationship with you. Really, any good relationship is centered around good communication. So I want to stress that, and you're going to see that as a theme through this conversation here in the next 50 minutes or so. Let me go ahead and jump first of all, and I'm going to share my screen at this point. Excuse me. I just finished a podcast interview, actually, so I'm talking a lot today, so you have to excuse the occasional clearing of my throat. I'll try to stay away from the mic for that. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, or share my browser. So you should be able to see my browser window. And of course, this is the home page of Photographer's Edit, our website. You can see custom editing for professional photographers, and that is our specialty. There are a variety of editing companies out there, but our specialty is custom editing that matches your editing style as a portrait photographer, a wedding photographer, a commercial photographer, custom editing for professional photographers. And I want to jump really quickly to the services just to sum these up in case there are questions about the services that we offer, and then we're going to jump to the workflow. And again, everything today I talk about is going to center around helping you have a better experience with Photographer's Edit, or the best possible experience with Photographer's Edit. But just very briefly, you can see that, and this is our most popular service, is the custom color correction work right here. 24 cents an image. You give us your editing style, and I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a second. But it's 24 cents an image. You give us your editing style. We match that editing style. We process the images. We give them back to you. Some photographers will have us do both the culling and the color correction work. And you can see that over here on the left-hand side. And we get a question or a comment a lot of times, why is culling and color correction cheaper than just color correction? It's not. What we figure for actually in that pricing for culling and color correction is that we're going to be editing out a significant percentage of the images before we then color correct the rest. So we figure that into the price. And if you have any questions, or if there's any confusion about how much it's going to cost, all you have to do is just click on that little calculator link, and up pops, let's say you shot a wedding and you've got 2,000 images, and you want, I would say personally, about 70% of the images that I shoot, I want culled. I want to keep the best 30%. And so in this case, we'll call it 600 images, and it gives you a cost. So we've got that calculator there for culling and color correction. We have it there for color correction as well. We also offer basic advanced retouching, which are flat rates for particular services. So I'll click on more details. You can see the basic retouching is dodging and burning, skin blemish removal, and basic flyaway hair removal for up to 2 people. And then the advanced retouching we've added to that skin softening and whitening of eyes and teeth. So if you want a simple retouching service, you want certain images retouched, and just a really simple math, that flat rate is pretty cool. $1.50 to $3 an image. And then if anything else that you want done, it's going to fall under custom retouching. And we can pretty much do anything you can think of, replacing backgrounds, swapping heads, faces, etc. We can do that if you can think of it. And what you're going to do is submit that order to us as a, or to get a quote. You're going to let us know what you want done to the particular number of images. We'll give you a quote, and you can say yay or nay, go ahead, and we'll make that happen for you. All right, we've got, looks like a question or a comment already. Oh, does basic retouching include eye bags and wrinkles? Leslie is asking this question. And let me actually jump down here. So the skin softening right there, between the skin softening, forgive me, skin softening is going to play into that, particularly with wrinkles. But then skin blemish removal, that will cover the eye bags that you're talking about. And that's a great question, Leslie. And I love this. Decent amount of interaction already. Please don't hesitate to ask questions, make comments. If there's anything that we can do to clarify, please do. A question from Jennifer. She says, I use ACR and PS, Photoshop, don't use Lightroom at all. Is there a way to still get color correction without submitting images through Lightroom? There is. You can send us, and I'm going to show you this when we get to the order placement here in just a second. But if you want to send us full-size JPEGs, that is an option. It is not as efficient because you're talking about a large file or overall file size. If you put all those JPEG images or RAW images into a folder, zip it up, put it in Dropbox, and send us a link, it's going to take quite a while, not only for those images to upload into your Dropbox or WeTransfer folder or Google Drive, whatever you prefer to use, but then it's going to take time for us to download that and process it. So it's actually a little bit more expensive, and I'll show you that here in just a second, but it is an option. My suggestion to you, if you are not already paying for Creative Cloud, which I think is, what is it, $10 or $15 a month, it's the best possible $10 or $15 a month you can spend because you have the latest version of the software. And Lightroom is significantly more efficient when it comes to sending and getting images back because it allows you to create what are called smart previews. They're a fraction of that file size. About, I think it comes down to something like 10% of the original file size. So it's a much quicker process to upload files to us. And so I would recommend it for that and many other reasons as well. And Jennifer says, I'm paying for Creative Cloud, but Lightroom is so confusing to me. And I get it. There's a lot of different moving parts there. But we actually have a full tutorial. Excuse me. If you click on the support section of our site, it takes you to the support site. And you can see here that there's this section called the Photographer's Edit Workflow. If you've never used Lightroom before, but you have access to it, if you just simply follow these, let's see, what do we have here? 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, I think 8 different links, within which there are some tutorial videos, very simple tutorial videos that walk you through the process. You can literally follow along with how to import the images into Lightroom, how to export those images, send them to us using Lightroom. I'd highly recommend doing that, again, for the sake of efficiency and ultimately saving yourself some money. It is definitely cheaper. That 24 cents goes up. I want to say it's 3 cents an image. We'll confirm that here in just a second when we get to the order screen. But it's going to be cheaper for you to actually use Lightroom. You don't have to use it for the rest of your workflow. But I would recommend it because Lightroom takes the functionality that's already built into ACR, Adobe Camera Raw, and builds on that multifold. And so it's actually a similar processing or the same processing engine, but just with way more options, more tools, more functionality. And so I highly recommend it. I used to be an ACR fan as well. And then I got into Lightroom and I was like, oh, once you start to learn it, not only will it make more sense, but there's actually some really great tools in there. And you don't, just like with Photoshop, you don't have to learn every single tool in that piece of software in order to use it. So I'd highly recommend it. And Jennifer says, oh, that's great. We'll definitely look at that process. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Again, I love the interaction. Please don't hesitate to continue to ask questions, make comments, give suggestions. We've done enough of these webinars at this point. We've gotten suggestions during the webinar that we've ultimately implemented in the Photographer's Edit workflow. We love that feedback. I mentioned earlier the significance of communication. It goes both ways. It's not just about explaining to us what your editing style is or giving us feedback after you get an order. It's also, hey, you know what? This would be a lot easier if you could do this, this, or that. And we'll take some of those comments into consideration and sometimes make change as a result. So again, don't hesitate to give us that feedback. All right, I want to respect everybody's time. We've got about 45 minutes. What I'm going to do here, excuse me, is jump to, go ahead and close out of the support site. And by the way, don't miss the significance of the support site. We have a wealth of information. If you can think of a question about our service, it's likely answered here on the support site. So make sure you take advantage of it. The most important section right here, the photographer's edit workflow, the introductory questions, probably almost as important as well. Make sure you at least cover those two, and that'll give you a great head start to using our service. All right, now, when you sign up, and let me go ahead and jump back to the homepage here, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. When you sign up with Photographer's Edit, if you haven't already, just very briefly, I want to show you what we do. The first thing that we do is we ask you to share your editing style with us. So you're going to get an email confirmation. You're going to click on a link. It's going to take you to this page. And of course, it says, welcome to Photographer's Edit. We give you the option to go ahead and schedule a call with one of our team members. And we're certainly glad to jump on the phone if that's helpful to you. But if you're ready to go ahead and share your editing style, you can do that. And you're going to do that right here. Just click on share your editing style. And what we've done is to try to cover all the bases, right? We know that some photographers have not clearly established their own editing style yet, and they want a head start in that direction. And so we give them a couple styles to choose from. And if you click on one of these images, PE Standard, PE Film. PE Standard is basically true to life finish. PE Film, pretty straightforward. A very mild film finish. I say mild in that they're not extreme variances in the color tonality, some of the weird stuff that you see in some of the film presets. It's a very simple film preset, a little bit of texture. You've got a couple there that you can choose from to begin with. Now, normally, I already have my account set up, or the beginnings of it set up with an editing style. Normally, you wouldn't see anything in this particular blank right here. And this is where you would share your own editing style. I'll get to that in just a second, but PE Standard, PE Film, these are a couple of options to choose from to begin with if you don't already have an established editing style for yourself. If you click on the image, you can see the original and the after, how we would process your images in that particular context using this particular editing style, PE Standard, true to life. And you can scroll through and see a variety of examples. Same thing applies with that PE Film. You can click on it, and if one of these two works for you to get started, awesome. Choose it and go place your first order. If you have an editing style already, you want to communicate that with us, also great. And you're going to click at that point on Customize. And what it's then going to do is take you to, now this looks a little bit different. This is actually inside your account. I already have my account set up, so I should have actually logged out and set up a separate screen. The process is essentially the same. If you're just signing up, we take you kind of section by section through setting up your editing style. In your account, once you set up your account, if you literally click on account at the top right-hand corner of the Photographer's Edit website, it takes you to the account dashboard, and you'll see a section called Editing Styles. I click on Modify, and then it takes you to that particular screen, the editing style screen. And this is where, again, you have the option to view the existing PE presets, the Photographer's Edit presets that we created for you. And then we've got the 3 custom options. Now you'll notice that you only saw one blank or one field for a custom option on the home page, or excuse me, on the sign up page. We actually have 3 here. And the reason that we did this, actually, I think this is one of those where we got feedback from participants during our webinars who said, you know what, I've got a different editing style for portrait sessions, and then I have a different editing style for weddings. Can we upload, multiple presets? And we're like, you know what, no, sending multiple presets doesn't work, but what we can do is give you the space to set up multiple editing styles. So if you're submitting a portrait session, you can choose your portrait session editing style. If you're submitting a wedding, choose the wedding style, etc. So you've got up to 3 different sections, or up to 3 different custom styles that you can submit to us. And when you click on Customize, and again, we walk you through this step by step when you're setting up your account. This is what it actually looks like in your account. We, of course, allow you to name that particular editing style. And then you're going to share visual representations of your editing style with us. So, for example, if you were to say, I love a warm image, frankly, if 100 photographers said, I love a warm image, that would mean 100 different things to 100 different photographers, right? These are very subjective terms. They mean different things to different people. We see light and color differently. And so, along with the text instructions, what we do is ask you for a visual representation of your work. What does that mean? Well, we've given you actually up to 16 spaces for excuse me, an image straight out of the camera, and that same image processed the way that you would originally, or excuse me, that you would after you get that camera from its original form. So you've got the original image, and then you process that same image and upload that version of it. So our team can see visually the original image straight out of the camera, untouched, and then the edited version of that. You can do that up to 16 times. My suggestion to you is to upload as many images as you possibly can from a wide variety of lighting scenarios, because that is going to give our team a wide range example of your editing style. Now, the caveat to that is make sure that your editing style is consistent, because I've seen countless times photographers upload a variety of sample images before and after, straight out of the camera and then processed, but they're processed differently, a little bit of different contrast levels, different white balance levels. So be clear about your editing style. Make sure that the examples you're sharing with us are consistent. And again, ideally from a wide variety, as we mentioned right up here in the text, a wide variety of lighting scenarios. But this will give our team a visual representation of your style. And it looks like we've got a question or a comment. Leslie says, should our sample images only have general adjustments, or can they be fully edited and retouched? That's a great question, Leslie. For the sake of the color correction examples, my suggestion would be to don't worry about the retouching. Just do the color correction work that you would do in Lightroom, or if you're using other software, but do the color work and upload those examples here. The retouching we can handle separately. All right, great question. Again, don't hesitate to continue to shoot questions and comments my way, suggestions as well. So setting up your editing style, again, the most important, or certainly the first step, and one of the most important steps in your relationship with photographers edit, sharing your editing style. Don't just randomly send an order and expect us to kind of guess what you're thinking. Make sure that you communicate your editing style with us in detail. And you can do that through this page. You're going to name it, upload the visual examples. Then we give you a space to upload Lightroom presets. And of course, with the most recent version of Lightroom, if you're using newer Lightroom presets that have color profiles, then you can upload those color profiles as well. And that is the section right here. So we give you space for a color preset, a black and white preset. And if you need to upload a color profile, you can do that right there. Pretty straightforward. And then we scroll down, and while I stress the significance of the visual representation of your editing style up here at top, and that's why it's there first. In fact, I think at one point in time, that's all we had. It was just the visual representation. We have decided to go ahead and also ask for text-based instructions. So we're going to give you a few drop downs for the basics: white balance, exposure, contrast, grain. You can go ahead and specify your preferences there. Again, make sure that what you're specifying here lines up with the visual representation, because if there's discrepancy, that's going to potentially leave our team confused and either lead to inconsistency in the finished product, or at the very least, you may just get an email asking for clarification before we can finish processing your order, which delays the order. Excuse me. So just make sure that there's consistency between the visual representation and what you put in the drop downs here, as well as the instructions, the text instruction here for culling, if you're having us cull. Don't worry about that if you're not. Color correction, any nuances to your editing style with regards to color correction. And then cropping and straightening, black and white conversion, if you're going to have us do that. Any additional comments, this is where you're going to put them. And what's really great about putting this all in one place is when you go to submit an order, I'm going to show you what this looks like here in just a second. When you go to submit an order, you've already entered all the instructions regarding your editing style in this custom editing style. So you don't have to put those notes in the job notes. You've already got it in the editing style. Our team can reference that. All right, now looks like I've got a few questions or comments. Let me look at those real quick. Kate says, I've had trouble previously with an outsourced editor consistently flattening out my vividness of my sunrise and sunrise sessions. Is there something that I can do, say share with PE submission, to help make sure that doesn't happen, or at least not nearly as much? And Kate, you actually make a really interesting point there, and I do want to highlight this. Our team, we've been doing this now for 12 and a half years or so. So we're actually really, really good at this, but we will never, ever, ever be perfect. So I should say when, let's just, and I think our redo rate is something like 3% over time. So it's a very minimal amount where we've actually had photographers come back and say, hey, can you redo this for us? But if that ever happens, don't hesitate to let us know. And I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a little bit. We are imperfect. I'm going to own that, because if I create that, if I create that expectation for you now, you'll understand that going into it and just realize, hey, you know what? I just need to send them some feedback and they'll fix this issue for me if that happens. So I'm glad that you highlight that, Kate. But to answer your question, probably the best way to do this really is twofold to cover all the bases. Number one, when I mention sharing the visual example of your editing styles, make sure to include sunrise and sunset session images in your sample images. Again, straight out of the camera for the before, and then the after image being the image processed the way that you would process in that particular lighting scenario. So give us the visual representation up here, along with the other examples, and then go ahead and make note along with those sunrise and sunset images. If you have additional notes to go with them, you can add them right here in the color correction section. And if you need an additional line, click on that little plus icon. You can add additional instructions. We do limit it to 100 characters per line, just because in the past, when we've given photographers more room, they'll literally write us a book. I mean, it's like paragraphs of information. It becomes kind of entertaining, and then at the same time, it actually becomes confusing, because if it takes a long time or a lot of words to explain what it is that you're wanting, it may be that you're not quite clear about your editing style, what it is that you're wanting. So make sure that you're clear about what you want. That will enable you to communicate really concisely, which then leads to better finished results. Anyway, to answer your question, Kate, visual examples, and then you can add notes to go along with that if you'd like down here in the additional comments. Rosa said, you mentioned Lightroom presets. What if I use Photoshop presets? Ideally, I'd like to upload a gallery and have someone cull it and apply the Photoshop presets. So Rosa, we actually, our workflow is actually based in Lightroom. We use Photoshop for retouching, but all of our color correction is based in Lightroom. And so with that being said, we only use Lightroom presets. My suggestion to you, and this is a conversation that we've had certainly over the years with photographers. I can think of one in particular, I think even just in the last year or so, where a photographer had a Photoshop preset, and my suggestion to them, and I think I even at that point offered to help them find a Lightroom preset that matched the Photoshop preset. And what that then enables you to do is get that work done in Lightroom, which again is a much more efficient platform for color correction, custom color correction work than Photoshop is. And that will also enable you to be able to send your work to us, upload that preset into your account, and we can process your images for you in Lightroom. Photoshop, we do use, but we reserve that really for the custom retouching orders where we have to do extensive retouching work. Kate says, the notes will be great. Thank you. Yes, absolutely, Kate. But I would stress again, make sure the visual is there as well. So put in addition to the notes and the additional comments, make sure that there's visual representation straight out of the camera, and then how you would process those sunrise and sunset session images. Forgive the little bit of a lisp here. I've been wearing these invisible braces now for, it's probably been about a year, and for whatever reason, the last couple of months, the braces they've been sending to me have caused a little bit more of a lisp. So my apologies for that. Let me go ahead and continue. So this is the editing style. And setting up your editing style, as I mentioned before, I'm going to come back here. You notice that you have the option for 3 different editing styles. Again, as many visual representations as possible, but you do have the option for 3 different styles to choose from, depending on what type of order you might be submitting. So if you want to fill out all 3, that's great. I'll show you how to choose that editing style here in just a second. But I want to make sure there aren't any other questions about choosing your editing style or sharing your editing style with us. Do you have any questions or comments about that process? Feel free to pop those in the chat window before I go to the ordering process. And we're making great time here. We've got about 30 minutes. We're going to get to the ordering process next. Any questions about editing style so far? About 15 seconds here. It looks like we've got a comment or a question. Susie said, I came in late, so trying to catch up. Will there be a replay? Susie, great question. I am actually recording this right now on my laptop. And so Haley will post the replay on the Photographer's Edit Facebook page later this evening, probably by 6 p.m. Eastern, no later than. If you want to look for that, you can go to facebook.com/photogsedit, PHOTOGSEDIT. I tell you what, I'm going to type it in the window, facebook.com/photogsedit. And there's the link to our Facebook page there. And Susie said, thank you so much. Absolutely. Glad to do that. Yeah, we'll post that there so you can replay it. We talk a little bit about the philosophy behind Photographer's Edit and using our service at the beginning. It's actually pretty important stuff. So definitely go back and take a look at that. All right. Any other questions about sharing your editing style before we jump to the ordering process? I hope this is straightforward enough so far. As I stressed at the outset, everything's about communication. So first, you're communicating your editing style. Next, you're going to communicate what you want in your order. And then lastly, you're going to communicate your feedback to us. Those are the three things that we're focusing on today that will ultimately mean the best possible experience with Photographer's Edit. All right, I'm going to keep going. If you have any more questions about sharing your editing style, go ahead and pop those in there and we'll come back to it in just a little bit. Let me jump back to the account dashboard. I'm going to click on that here. And, you know, I should have done this a little bit earlier, but I just briefly want to review the account dashboard here before we go to ordering. You'll notice the account dashboard is really kind of the home page for your relationship with Photographer's Edit. The general section here is basically your personal information as well as payment information. You can update that there. Editing styles, we just talked about. We do have a referrals and rewards program. So if you use Photographer's Edit, you're stoked about our service and you want to tell another photographer about it, awesome. Click on the share button. And it's a bit ironic that one of the company owners, myself, has 0 shared with under the shared with section. At this point, I've shared Photographer's Edit with thousands of photographers. But click on share. And the cool thing here is that you can customize your referral code. So I click on customize there and I can actually change that code. And then what will happen is once that code's been customized, you'll get a link that you can send to somebody. You can email, just type in your photographer friend's email address. We'll send it for you. And what happens is if they place an order of $20 or more, they get 50% off their first order and you get 250 reward points. And it'll show the reward points earned as a result of using your referral code. Now, the rewards points, you can see here how many rewards points you earn. If I click on review, not only do you get a point for every dollar spent with Photographer's Edit, but you also get points for, of course, sharing about Photographer's Edit. And those points will continue to add up here for either free processing or an Amazon gift card. So you get $15 in free processing or a $10 Amazon gift card for every 500 points earned. And so that is our rewards program. Definitely take advantage of that. And then last thing, and I'll just mention, actually second to last thing, I'll mention this very quickly. We do have something called a premium membership. We have really a limited number of spots at the moment for premium membership because of the way that COVID has affected our team. But premium membership gives you a faster turnaround time, 3 business day turnaround time for orders under 800 images, and 6 business day turnaround time for those orders over 800 images. This is particularly important during busy season. But that along with the fact that you usually have the same editor or editing team working on your order means more consistent finished results as well. That's the premium membership. It's $99 for a year. Again, limited availability at the moment for that membership because of the constrictions to the size of our team due to COVID. But that is an option there. The last thing is orders, and you can actually see your order history here. That's pretty straightforward. When we talk about feedback in just a little bit, I'll explain what these emojis are. All right. Looks like we have one question or comment. What is normal turnaround time if you're not a premium member? Great question, Leslie, and I should have highlighted that already. Average turnaround time for a wedding is 5 business days. Portrait is 3 business days. So actually really reasonable either way. The premium membership is just kind of taking it next level. Great question. All right, let me click on the order button. And right now, it looks like my Let me just jump back here to my account. Yeah, so my membership right now is shown as premium, not standard. So I do have my premium membership. So when I click on order now here, I click the order link here at the top of the page. You're going to notice that I have an option to submit a scheduled order, to schedule my orders. And that is the caveat. When you have a premium membership, if you want that faster turnaround time, you do have to schedule your orders in advance. And that's really important to note. But I'm currently going to place a non-scheduled order. Just for the sake of discussion here, I just want to show you what it looks like to place a regular order, a non-scheduled order, a non-premium order. And again, for the sake of simplicity, we're going to stick with something really basic, just our custom color correction, which, by the way, is the most popular service by far at Photographers Edit. A lot of photographers, or most photographers, they do their own culling. So then they just send us the images that they want color corrected, that custom color correction applied to. And so that's the service I'm choosing here. And for the sake of discussion, we'll say 100 images. Now, in the future, if you want help with the ordering process, you can click this little box here, walk me through ordering, and we'll kind of take you step by step or section by section through that ordering process. But today, I'm going to do that for you. I click on continue. Now, a couple of things I want to highlight to begin with. First of all, you'll notice the estimated turnaround time based on the number of images that you are submitting. Little tip or trick for you: the earlier that you place the order in the day, the faster the turnaround time, as a general rule. Right now, 100 images, not a huge order, and we've got pretty decent capacity at the moment, so pretty quick turnaround time on 100 images. You can see I said 3 business days earlier for a portrait session. You might actually get it back a little bit faster right now. That may change a little bit as we get into a busier season. September, October in particular, November gets to be our busier season. And even with the way that COVID has affected our company, we are going to see an uptick likely in orders during those months. So you may see this time frame change depending on the number of images that you're submitting, what time of day you're submitting them, and then what time of the year it is. And again, fall tends to be our busiest time of the year. So that's the first thing I wanted to highlight. And again, that's an estimate. But then the other thing that I want to highlight is you'll notice if you scroll down, there are a lot of different options on this ordering page. That's part of the reason I'm walking you through it. The reason there are a lot of options is because we are a custom editing house. We started, when Photographers Edit first started back in 2008, I actually intentionally launched a super simple service because our primary competition at the time was offering an uber complicated service. And I wanted to make sure that we stood out from them. We were offering, really filling a niche, a need in the industry. But through the 12 and a half years or so we've been in business, we realized photographers ultimately want control. And it made sense, long story short, to go ahead and move in that direction where we did offer more options. So you're going to see a lot of different options here that give you a lot of control as a photographer. I know this process of delegating your editing work is a bit of it causes some apprehension, some nervousness, right? And you want to maintain as much as control as possible while still giving us the editing work to do. So you've got a lot of different options. All that to say, when you get started placing your first order, you can actually name a new profile. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to call, right here, I'm going to name a new profile, ordering profile. And we'll just call this Holritz portrait. And what happens is I go through and I choose all the options in here. When I click and add to cart, that particular order, or that particular list of settings for this particular order will get saved as the Holritz portrait ordering profile. Now, that's important because the next time you come to place an order, you're going to actually have the option to be able to choose from that profile. It's going to fill in most of those options for you, and then you just modify of course, the number of images, or maybe you want a slightly different service, or of course you need to give it a different order name, these types of things that you have to customize per order. But it fills in the rest for you and it saves you time. So yeah, there are lots of options, but once you kind of get figured out what it is you want done to each of your orders, whether they're portrait orders, wedding orders, commercial orders, boudoir, family, newborn, whatever it might be, you can give those order profile names or presets almost, and it will help save you time in the ordering process. So I wanted to let you know that we have that in place. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give this a name. We'll call this Smith Portrait. And the service I already selected is custom color correction. Number of images, 100. Already noted that as well. Type of shoot, definitely portrait. What type of images are you sending? Now, I mentioned earlier that our workflow is done, our color correction work, custom color correction work is done in Lightroom. And excuse me, Lightroom 9 is what we encourage. If you're using Creative Cloud, and I think most photographers probably are at this point, who are active photographers, just make sure your software is up to date and you will have Lightroom Classic version 9. We do give the option for 8 still, but if you have Creative Cloud, there's no reason not to update. So make sure you have the latest version of Lightroom Classic version 9. And we do give a reminder here about the significance of that. And then Lightroom Catalog, of course, is by default what we send back to you. So you upload your Lightroom Catalog and Smart Previews, or like mini raw files. And again, if you have a question about how to do that, you can go to, you can go to our support site, click on the Photographer's Edit Workflow, and you'll see a section right here called Prepping Files to Send. If you click on that, there's a little video and it walks you through that process. And then we also take you step by step via text and pictures how to do that as well. Exporting files also in there. And that's just one of the articles. Really, really helpful section of the support site, so make sure you take advantage of that. That being said, Lightroom Catalog is the finished product that we send back to you by default. Now, if you want JPEGs back as a finished product, you're going to have to upload, you're going to have to upload RAW files or JPEG files. And as I mentioned earlier in response to a question, you'll see it's 3 cents extra if you're submitting RAW files, and then it's going to be extra if you are 2 cents additional per image for a finished JPEG file. So my suggestion, my recommendation to you, again, because it's the most efficient, but also because it's the cheapest, is that you are getting, or you're submitting and receiving a Lightroom catalog. Looks like we got a question or comment here. I saw that Jennifer says, I saw the 3 cent charge for uploading RAW. Is that the only charge for continuing to use ACR instead of going to Lightroom? And that is part of it. The other part, Jennifer, is what I just mentioned, which is that there's a 2 cent per image cost for the exported JPEGs. So you can upload, if you want to, a RAW or JPEG file, and then we can still send you the finished Lightroom catalog. Or if you want finished JPEGs in return, then you're going to pay that additional 2 cents an image. So just figure an additional 5 cents an image on top of the 24 cents for the service as a whole. And that is the only additional charge if you want to continue to use ACR. Jennifer says still reasonable. Good. I'm glad that you think so. But I will make this offer to you, Jennifer, if you ever are interested, because I think for the long run, for the sake of efficiency in your workflow, and then ultimately your experience with Photographer's Edit, Lightroom is going to be a great option. I know it's a bit overwhelming, but I've done this for photographers before. If you want me to send you a tutorial about how to get started with Lightroom, I can do that. I can also, we could jump on a Zoom call. One of our team can jump on a Zoom call with you and just share with you the basics of Lightroom, how to get set up with Lightroom. So you can get started with that, and that would save you a little bit of money. And over time, that you know, the 5 cents an image can add up. So I just want to offer that as those two things as options. Just let us know. And Jennifer says, thank you. Leslie says, does your site have the ability for us to upload a Lightroom catalog and Smart Previews directly, or do we need to use Dropbox or something else? We do recommend that you use Dropbox, WeTransfer, Google Drive, any of those file sharing services. Put those, and you can see this in that on the support site in the tutorial video, but if you put those Lightroom, the Lightroom catalog and the Smart Previews into a folder, zip it up, and then put it in Dropbox or a file sharing service, you can just give us that link when you place the order. That's the easiest way to do it. And let's see. Rosa said, how can I see which version of Lightroom I have? Good question, Rosa. If you go to, let me go ahead and open up Lightroom. And I can show you this here really quick. Actually, you know what? We'll cancel that out. Just to keep it simple, Rosa, if you go to Lightroom, click on the Lightroom. Are you on a Mac or PC? Go ahead and shoot that information to me, and then I can tell you. Mac, Rosa says. So if you have Lightroom open, just click on the Lightroom word there, and then you're going to see a menu item that says About. If you click on that, it'll tell you what version. There should also be, I think, in the top left-hand corner of that Lightroom screen, it should say the version number as well. All right. Any other questions so far? I'm going to keep going through the ordering process. Pop any other questions or comments in that chat window, and I'll come back to them. Okay, so back to the image software you use. Make sure you're updated the most recent version of Lightroom. And do you want to review sample edits? This is an interesting one that gives you the option. If you're a little bit apprehensive, you don't want us to process the whole order before you get a chance to look at the images, you can request 10 sample images. And you can see the little note in parentheses there. It delays the order turnaround time. It does delay it. Part of the problem that we've run into is when a photographer requests samples from us, we process the samples within a pretty short amount of time. They get an email saying, hey, your samples are ready. And they're off on vacation or they're doing something else, they're not paying attention. And of course, not intentionally, but their order gets delayed as a result. So my suggestion to you, our team is really, really good at what they do. My suggestion to you would be, don't request the samples because I don't want to delay your order in any way. Just make sure that your editing style page is filled out completely and thoroughly, as I described earlier, making sure that the example images, the before-after images, are consistently in line with the instructions, the text instructions that you get, that there's consistency there so it won't cause any confusion. Make sure that's filled out thoroughly and just submit the order because our team will follow those instructions and you should be good to go. But the option does exist and I just want to highlight that. All right, we've got about 15 minutes here. Very quickly, choose an editing style. Of course, this is where you do note the editing style, and I'm going to choose my custom editing style, Holritz Portraits. You can do that. You can choose one of the pre-existing photographer's edit styles there. You also have the option to use edited images in my Lightroom catalog as reference. And this is a pretty popular option because probably many of you are processing a few images for social media or for a blog, or maybe you want to update a few images on your website. So you've processed a few images in Lightroom. You already have those, and then you send us that catalog. They're already processed. If that's the case and you want us to use those images as a point of reference instead of the editing style page in your account, then you can choose this option right here. If you click on the little question mark, you can see right here that if you'd like us to use the edited images in your Lightroom catalog as reference, please label those images green. And our team will use those as reference. We ask for the number of reference images. You can specify that. In this case, I'm just going to choose my custom editing style. Black and white, I personally like maybe 20 to 30% conversion of images to black and white. And there's no additional charge for that unless you want both black and white and color versions of that same image. You can see 5 cents an image extra for that. But I just want 20 to 30% of my images converted. And so I'm going to choose that option here, that classic black and white style. And then cropping and straightening. Photographers have different preferences when it comes to cropping and straightening. So we give you options. Light crop, regular crop, tight crop, no crop. You've got 4 different options there. And you can click on this little question mark just to see a breakdown of what each of those mean and choose the appropriate option. I'm just going to say a light crop there. Noise reduction, also an option. Remove chromatic aberration, apply lens correction. Image categorization for wedding photographers. If you just want basic image categorization for wedding photographers, no additional cost for you. If you have custom categories, whatever type of photographer you are, we do charge extra for that categorization. I think at this point, there's a very small percentage of people that are actually having us do any kind of categorization for them. So I don't want you to think that we're constantly tacking on this fee and that fee. 24 cents an image is going to get you custom color correction, and there are very few options in here that cost anything extra. So just want to highlight that fact. And then if you have flagged, starred, labeled any images in your Lightroom catalog, our team is if you only knew the extent to which our team is trained and also their attention to detail, and they're going to notice if you have images flagged, starred, labeled, etc., and want to make sure that they're not supposed to do something with those images. And so you're going to tell them here how to handle those flagged, starred, labeled images. And that is going to be really important to do. Sequence images. If some of your images are out of order or you shot with a couple of photographers and they need to be time synced, we can do that for you. We don't charge anything extra, and that option is there. And then I mentioned earlier the retouching. You do have the ability to be able to add retouching as an add-on to your order and specify which images in that Lightroom catalog you want retouching applied to. And that option is right there in the drop-down as well. All right, we've got a couple comments or question here. And Leslie says, can we request for you to star and flag images you like best if you're culling? Leslie, what you're going to actually do when you get the catalog back, if we did the culling for you, those images will be flagged. If you're in Lightroom, the P key is what flags those images, but they will be flagged. So you'll know that they were the ones that were chosen, and you'll be able to sort by culled images. Susie says, I categorize as I cull within the catalog. How does that affect the catalog and editing on your end, or do I need to export them differently? You don't need to export them differently at all. If the categories are already in there and you don't need us to do anything to them, that's totally fine. The only thing that I would suggest, and I think we actually talk about this in the Photographer's Edit workflow on the support site, if you categorize in your catalog, make sure to minimize any potential complications with the Lightroom catalog, make sure to have all the original RAW or JPEG files in one folder. If you start taking the original files and breaking them up into multiple folders, that can get a little bit tricky when it comes to syncing the Lightroom catalog with the original files. So my suggestion to you as far as the workflow is concerned, when you import your images from your cards or your card, put them all into one folder, do any kind of categorization virtually in the Lightroom catalog, like you're saying, Susie, and leave it at that. But if you have those categories already in there, make a quick note. And if you're going to do that with all your orders, put that in your editing style notes, or you can add it right here to the order notes if it's specific to an order that you've already categorized, to leave the categories alone, and you'll be good to go. And let's see. Oh, and Susie said, okay, I do have multiple folders, but I have an all folder too. So again, Susie, because of the process involved in transferring the Lightroom catalog back and forth, one of the probably the biggest issues that we've had in the past, I don't know that it's as much an issue anymore. One of the biggest issues we've had in the past is with synchronizing Lightroom catalogs. The technology has been refined, and I think the process is improved. But you're sending us a Lightroom catalog, we're processing them, we're sending you a Lightroom catalog back, and you're either opening that up or you're connecting it to an existing catalog. It can be a bit of a complicated process. You want to minimize any potential complication or any potential issues. So if you have, and maybe you can just share briefly with me what your folder structure is, but if you have a folder that houses the raw files, the original files, that's great. If that sits within some other folder, that's fine. That's not an issue. The only thing that I would be concerned about, the consideration I would ask you to make, is the original files. They just need to be in an individual folder, and then do any of your categorization virtually in the Lightroom catalog. And that will help minimize any issues with syncing the catalog to the original files, because this is what's going to happen. You export your Lightroom catalog. Let me jump on here so you can, hello. So what's going to happen is you export your Lightroom catalog with the Lightroom Smart Previews. You put that in a folder, you zip it up, you send us the link, and we process those images for you. You get the Lightroom catalog back. And when you get that Lightroom catalog back, you're going to, the simplest way to do it is just to double click to open that Lightroom catalog. You open the Lightroom catalog, and you're going to go to that folder and click Find Original Images. And you're going to sync that catalog with the original folder of RAW or JPEG files, whatever format you shoot in. And then you'll see our team's work render on those files. It's like magic. It's really, really cool, actually. But there is a higher likelihood of complication or issues with that syncing process of getting the work back from our team if you've got multiple folders of images. So for the sake of simplicity, my suggestion would be to use one folder. And we outline that briefly, that workflow briefly, in the Photographer's Edit workflow video. I was starting to move my video window like you were going to be able to see my browser window. Let me just show you really quick. If I click on the support site here, the Photographer's Edit workflow, and right here, tools and file management. This is where we just make a simple suggestion as to file management workflow that will make this whole workflow with Photographer's Edit as easy as possible. Super, super simple, which I always encourage anyway for any photographers. We're kind of funny as photographers that at times we have a tendency of kind of complicating things unnecessarily, and that can just end up taking more time in our workflow as a whole. So super simple is the name of the game. And I share that workflow, or actually Dylan, who put these videos together, shares that workflow in that video. That is a great question. Comment. Thanks for the thought, Susie. And she says, okay, thank you. I'll check out the workflow video too. Amen. We do complicate. Ha. I'm the worst, Susie, at complicating things when I don't need to. So I'm actively trying to keep things simple. Okay. So that really finishes up the ordering process. We've got about 5 minutes here. Any other questions or comments that you have about the ordering process in the chat window there? Very briefly, I want to jump to the feedback process. Remember, the whole experience, the whole process, I should say, of having a great experience with Photographer's Edit centers around communication. Initially, the communication of your editing style. Secondly, the communication of your order, which we just reviewed. And then the communication of your feedback. That's the third step. If you go to your account, once you submit that order, of course, pay for it and send it to us. If you go to your account, you can see in the order history those orders that you may have placed. Now, you'll notice on the right-hand side, there's all these different columns and by the way, EDC is estimated date of completion for that particular order. That's important to note. You can also check the status of your order right here. But right over here, and then of course, when you get the finished order back, you can download the images. You can see that link right there. Now, excuse me, feedback. If you get an order back and you're totally stoked about it, let us know. Let the team know. We've processed millions and millions and millions of images over the last 12 and a half years. Our team does a lot of work to make this stuff happen. And honestly, it's really encouraging. Most photographers don't, and I think probably most of you know this principle too. I'm certainly guilty of it. If I have a good experience with a company, in most cases, I don't proactively reach out to let them know that I had a good experience with them. I'm just like, okay, that's cool, and I move on. But it's really helpful and encouraging to our team who puts a lot of really hard work in to hear that things are going well, to find out what it is that you enjoy about the service. So let us know, if you will. That's a really big encouragement, a big help. And you click on any one of these smiley, we've got a couple of smiley face emojis there. We also have kind of an in-between one, a meh emoji, which is kind of funny. And I'm going to click on this here. So we've got this meh emoji you can see in the middle. And it's so funny. We used to have, I think we originally started with maybe just 2 emoji, maybe 3. It was like incredible, pretty good, and not great, or something like that. And I actually got, photographers are so sensitive, and very particular, and they say, you know what, like, this is not enough. We feel bad saying it wasn't a great order. It was just kind of like a meh, like we just wanted a little bit of adjustment made, a little bit of a tweak. So we added the meh option, and I think it's great now. So we've got 5 different options, and let's just say you get an order back. If you get an order back and you're like, you know what, this is not bad, but the contrast was a little bit off in the portrait section, or the white balance was just a little bit off for this part of this family portrait session that I did in the park, or whatever it might be. We want to hear from you. And I know that probably what you're used to in interacting with a company, if you need to give them feedback or ask them to fix something, it's just kind of tedious back and forth, and you're sitting on hold on the phone, and you're sending an email, and you're waiting to get it back, and then you're giving more feedback. That's no fun for anybody involved. So we've created this really cool feedback system. It literally takes a couple minutes for you to send us some feedback. And we can go back and make an adjustment to the order and send an updated Lightroom catalog to you. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't go on our hate list or anything of the sort. We want that kind of communication because it gives us the opportunity to create the best possible experience for you. So, order feedback page, cannot stress enough, super, super important. And I want you to make sure that you take advantage of that page. And Jennifer's asking a question about retouching, or excuse me, the advanced retouching. I'll come back to that, Jennifer, in just a second. Thanks for asking that question. And again, any other questions or comments, make sure you post those in the chat window because we're going to be finishing up here in just a couple of minutes. But if you have feedback for an order, I'm going to go ahead and select this particular order. Normally, if you click the feedback next to that particular order number, it should fill in automatically for you. I have kind of meh feelings about this particular order. The type of feedback that I want to give has to do with the processing. Didn't have an issue with customer service or turnaround time. It's just the processing. And the particular issue that I was having is the editing style that I had communicated, the white balance that I was looking for. It wasn't quite what I thought it should be in this particular section of the order. So I click editing style not followed. my Holritz portraits, the custom style that I chose in that order, select the issue. The white balance was supposed to be neutral. That's what I chose in my preferences and the editing style for that particular, or excuse me, the settings for that particular editing style. It was supposed to be neutral, but it was really too warm. So this is a particular issue, the instruction that was not followed. And then what I say is images from the park are a bit too warm. Now, if all you said to us was that right there, our team would be left having to guess a little bit, right? Because again, words mean different things to different people. We communicate differently from one person to the next. So just like the editing style page, along with that very simple instruction, we also ask for a couple of examples. All you have to do is to go into that Lightroom catalog that you were browsing through. You're looking through that finished order from us at the Lightroom catalog, and take a screenshot of that image, which looks a little bit too warm. Screenshot that, upload that image right here as a problem image. Correct the white balance on that image and screenshot it, upload that image right here. Do the same thing once more. So we've got a couple of examples of the issue where the images from the park are a bit too warm. We have that written instruction, and then we have the visual examples. We've had some photographers in the past say that, oh, it takes too long to send you these example images. It really takes no longer than the amount of time it just took for me to communicate that to you. Literally open up your Lightroom catalog, you take a screenshot. On a Mac, for example, the keyboard shortcut is Command-Shift-4, and I just drag, I screenshot that area, and I upload it. I click on this little plus icon, I upload it from my computer. I make the adjustment to the white balance. Again, screenshot, upload it from my computer. It doesn't have to take long. The visual examples make all the difference in the world, and I cannot stress that enough. It's so important for us to see what it is that you're talking about. Upload a couple of examples. You could upload up to 4 if you'd like, but at least a couple of examples. Or if you want to just send us some examples via Dropbox, you can do that right here as well. And then you'll notice an option right here, please submit my order for a redo based on the feedback above. You click that option and submit feedback. Now, here's the really cool thing. First of all, had I not been talking this whole time, it would have taken me all of 3 or 4 minutes to fill out this page. So it doesn't take long. It doesn't require back and forth via email. And big bonus on top of everything else, in addition to giving us that feedback, you're able to also request a redo, and it doesn't cost you anything. So we take this feedback here, we go back, we make the adjustments, the changes to your Lightroom catalog, and then we're able to go back and send you back a finished Lightroom catalog with those changes made. You didn't have to go back and do the work. We got better from it. It's a win-win. You don't have to spend any time editing, fixing anything. We get better because we got your feedback. Everybody wins in this process. So I cannot stress enough, please, 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 communication is everything in your relationship with Photographers Edit. And this is especially true when it comes to giving us feedback if you ever have an issue with any order. We want the opportunity to be able to fix any potential issues. And particularly for the first 2 or 3 orders, there might be some tweaking that needs to be done. Just plan on that. It's part of the process. And delegating your editing or delegating anything to anyone really is that communication process. Use this feedback page to give us that feedback. And if you need to request an order, you just click that box. It doesn't cost you anything and submit the feedback, and that's it. Super simple, super easy, all about communication, but we make it as easy as possible for you with that page. All right, any questions about the feedback form? Leslie says, is it possible to have photos rejected, i.e. out of focus, closed eyes, etc.? I like flagged, unflagged, and rejects. Leslie, we keep it, I mentioned earlier the significance of simplicity. And when I designed the workflow originally, the goal was to keep things as simple as possible. And one of the things that I came to realize was it takes longer to unflag or to decide which images we don't want versus just simply picking our favorites. And so when I used to teach Lightroom, I taught for Adobe and I taught webinars. My recommendation in that workflow was very simply to choose the images you want to keep, because you're going to end up spending additional time thinking about the images you don't want to keep, and kind of creating this tiered system in your culling. Just pick the 1 or 2 images from a series that you like and then move on to the next series, and that makes that whole process much, much more efficient. And that's how we designed the workflow for our team as well. So to answer your question very simply, if you do have us cull, what you're going to get back is a catalog with the keeper images flagged. And what you can do if you want is to run a filter for images that are not flagged, and naturally then you'll see the images that were quote unquote rejected. The images that are flagged are the ones that we kept, and the ones, of course, that we're going to color correct. If that makes sense. Leslie says, no wonder why it takes me so long. Yeah, it's just one of those things like we talked about earlier where we, in kind of the process of I guess, adding nuance to our workflow and wanting to make sure we get every little detail perfect, that sometimes we can complicate it a little bit extra, and it ends up taking us, creating a longer workflow or less efficient workflow. So yeah, that's what we do. We just flag the images. And again, if you want to see the images that were not flagged, just run a filter for images that are not flagged in Lightroom, and you'll be able to see that that way. And then I want to jump back to Jennifer's question really quickly. And again, any other questions as we're finishing up here about this process of first of all, communicating your editing style, placing an order, and then sending us feedback? Let me know in the chat box. Jennifer said, if I have you do color editing and then a few images need advanced Photoshop editing, do I do 2 separate orders? And yes, Jennifer, absolutely. For the custom Photoshop order, what you're going to do, and I'm just going to jump back over here, place a non-scheduled order, and I'm going to choose custom retouching, and we'll just say 10 images. Click continue. And then you're going to answer the questions here. You're going to answer the questions here. Tell us what you want done. And the cool thing is, along with this, so this is where you're going to describe the work. You can give a pre-approved amount, and this is in the quote process. If you're familiar with our process already, if this is the first time placing an order, don't worry about that little field. And then right here where it says, what images are we working on? Right here, you have an option that says, I'm also ordering color correction. Use the images I upload for that order. Then you can give the order number. And right here, it says, when ordering multiple services for the same set of images, no need to upload the images more than once. Tell us here which images to use. So you're going to upload the images, or excuse me, you're going to have us process or retouch the images for that particular order. You'll do that right there. And in that case, by the way, we do need to have, for any kind of custom retouching, and this is where you might end up just placing a separate order. For any kind of custom retouching, we do need the RAW or JPEG files, and that's really, really important. All right, any other questions or comments? Jennifer says, you've thought of everything. I hope so. We've been doing this long enough at this point, but I'm sure there's some way that we can improve or refine the process. So as I said earlier, please don't hesitate to give us feedback, make suggestions. I'm glad to help in any possible way that we can. Let's see. Leslie says, can we submit TIFF files or do you prefer RAW? Leslie, if you're going to send RAW files, like full-size RAW files instead of the Lightroom previews, which are just, or excuse me, the Lightroom Smart previews, which are like mini RAW files, then yeah, send RAW files. That is what I would suggest. If TIFF files, the file size, I think at least in some cases, may even be a little bit larger than RAW files, aren't they? Nonetheless, RAW files is definitely preferable, and I think we're going to actually have more control on the dynamic range and the tonality with the RAW files than we would with the TIFF files. So definitely send RAW files if you're sending full-size RAW files. My suggestion is still going to be the Smart previews, which are like mini RAW files. Kate says it's been great. Thank you, Kate. And Leslie says, I prefer to get a TIFF back, not JPEG. Again, Leslie, with the, and this is assuming that you're going to send a, excuse me, that you're going to send original RAW files that you're wanting to get JPEGs back. I just want to make sure that that's clear. If you're sending us a Lightroom catalog, we can only send you a catalog back. If you want a finished file, like a physical file back, then you're definitely going to need to send us a RAW file or a JPEG file to begin with. And if you want TIFF, just specify that in the job notes if that is what you prefer. I know that a TIFF file is a lossless file. That might be why you're going that way. That the drawback, Leslie, in that case, and you probably are aware of this, is the file size is quite a bit larger. And in the scheme of things, it doesn't make that much of a difference for the sake of the finished image and what the client's going to get in their gallery. I remember back in the day when I was only shooting with a 6-megapixel camera, because I shot weddings for about 10 years. I was shooting with an old Nikon D1X. The dynamic range was terrible. The files were only about 6 megapixel. And I used to upload to a gallery called Pictage, and Pictage would then compress those images further. So here we have this image that I think I exported at like 80% of the 6-megapixel file. It goes to Pictage. They compressed it. And then I downloaded that compressed file and ordered a it was either 20 by 24 or 30 by 40 from that file that had been compressed multiple times over with, technology from like 2005. And it was a stunning print. It was printed on textured art paper. So I say that only to just encourage you. Again, I'm a huge fan of simplicity and efficiency because we only have so much time in life. And part of the benefit of being a business owner is having freedom and flexibility. If we're kind of complicating the workflow by using something that's inefficient, that's just a little bit less time that we have in our lives. JPEG is a really great solution because it's a smaller file size, faster transfer rate. Lightroom Catalog and Smart Previews even more so. But I would encourage you to stick with JPEG if you can, because it's going to be a faster transfer or download speed when you get that finished order back. All right, that's a little bonus, a little extra, just my thoughts, opinion ultimately, and my suggestion, my recommendation. Okay. It looks like that's all the questions and the comments. I really appreciate everybody hanging out with me today. To close out, Haley, we're going to give away a gift certificate. Is that correct? I'm going to ask Haley to comment there in that chat window. Hopefully she's still on board with us. She said, yes, yeah, okay, we are giving away a gift certificate. Can't see all the comments coming through. That's fine. Looks like we've got 17 people, I guess, including Haley, then we have 16 currently right now that are listening in. So Mary says, I'm here. Okay, Mary, awesome. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to actually give away 2 gift certificates, 2 $25 gift certificates. So, and Tiffany says, still here. Yes, I see a large number of people still here, actually, which is really great. I really appreciate everybody sticking around. So we're going to give away not just one, but 2 separate $25 gift certificates. This is to use toward an order at Photographer's Edit. And we're going to give these 2 gift certificates to the first 2 people whose names pop up in the chat window here. Okay, so obviously I can't control internet connection speeds and how fast you type and all that stuff. The first 2 people whose name who can answer this question that I'm about to ask, the first 2 people with the correct answer that pop up in my chat window, we're going to send these $25 gift certificates to. So we're going to give 2 away. And here's the question. So get ready with your typing fingers. Get ready to type really fast. What is the key, the one word key behind the best possible relationship with Photographer's Edit? All right, we already have winners. Boom. I mean, people are so quick to type here, but the first 2 people to type communication, which was the correct answer, Amber Smith and Cameron. I don't have a last name, but Cameron. So Amber and Cameron, do me a favor and send, just type in your email addresses in the chat window there. This is Amber and Cameron. They were the first 2 to respond with the correct answer, communication. And communication is the key to the best possible relationship with Photographer's Edit. Go ahead and share those email addresses, and I will get those to Haley and make sure that we get you all those $25 gift certificates. Okay, I'm going to take a quick screenshot here for Haley. So we've got those. Thank you, Amber and Cameron, for sharing. Thank you all for joining in, for listening in. If you've got any other questions, don't hesitate to shoot an email to our team, our support team. It's just support@photographersedit.com. But again, before you do that, my suggestion to you is to click on that support link on our website, because there is a wealth of information there, including tutorial videos walking you through the Photographer's Edit workflow that you can take advantage of there as well. Thank you all. Y'all have been so kind and thankful and wonderful today. Thanks for the conversation. Have an absolutely wonderful, wonderful day. Thanks to you who said that you're going to be using our service here coming up. Really, really appreciate your willingness to give us a shot. We're going to take good care of you, promise. Again, don't forget, communication, so important. Thank you all for hanging out. Have an absolutely wonderful, wonderful day.